friends, welcome back to my channel. I've got a really fun video planned for you guys. I'm bringing you 3 meals that were $5 each, and it's pretty much using things that you have already in your kitchen or that are pretty cheap to buy at the store to come up with $5 meal ideas for y'all. I thought this would be a good idea, like if you're in a pinch or things like that, just for some cheap meals that are not lacking in flavor. So these are 3 meals that we really enjoyed as our family, but get excited because it is also a collab with my friend Kayla here on YouTube. She is also going to be bringing you guys 3 meal ideas as well that were $5, but she did hers a little different, so we brought like 2 sides to the table for y'all. All of her meals were actually like go into the store with $5 and then come out with a meal for your family. So I'm really excited to see what she has cooking up, and if you haven't ever watched Kayla's videos on her channel, you will absolutely love her. She is an absolute sweetheart, and her videos, I absolutely love them. I've been watching them for a long time. She's your budget-friendly food fanatic, and she does really great what's for dinner videos on a budget, as well as pretty extreme grocery hauls every 2 weeks on her channel, and I absolutely love her grocery hauls. I wish I could stay on that tight of a budget. I don't know how she does it. So you will definitely want to check out hers. So if you want to see all 6 of the $5 meal ideas, then make sure you head over to her channel as soon as you're done watching mine to see her 3 meals. And if you're not already watching her channel, then make sure you subscribe and let her know that I sent you, because you won't regret it. You'll absolutely love her as well. But if you're coming over from Kayla's channel, then hello and welcome. I'm Courtney. I'm a stay-at-home mom to 2 boys. And over here on my channel, I post weekly grocery hauls as well as what's for dinner videos every single Friday. And then I also like to throw in videos like this for you guys. So if any of that sounds good, then I would love to have you subscribe and stick around so that you can be part of our YouTube family. It would mean so much to me. I appreciate you guys so much. But enough talking, let's get into the $5 meals. I hope this provides you guys with some meal inspiration and maybe a way to get through some tough times. So let's get on into it. For this first $5 meal, I made a chicken Meximelt. I don't know if you've ever had the Meximelts at Taco Bell, but they're normally beef. I've always gotten them as chicken ones though, so I kind of wanted to try to recreate those. And let me tell y'all, this was so good. I just used this grilled chicken, and then I had some taco seasoning left over. This was already opened, and then I still ended up having some left. We made 4 of these Meximelts for our family. So I'm just using 4 of the tortillas since we wanted to make 4 of the Meximelts, so not even half of the bag of tortillas. It was a 10-pack bag that I got, so I'm just going to cut that price in half since we could literally make these twice. I also got this pico de gallo at Walmart, and it was actually on sale for $1.83, but I really only used like 1/4 of it for all of the Meximelts that I made. So for the sake of the video, I'm just going to cut that price in half, because you could use this for other recipes to stretch it farther. You could make more of these Meximelts, use it for tacos, whatever you like to use pico de gallo for, you could totally do that. And then I'm using a cup of shredded cheddar cheese. You could also use some pepper jack cheese. I think that would be amazing in these to make it a little bit spicier. And the cheesier the better, so if you are able to, I would definitely use more, but this is just what we were using for the $5 meal. So to cook the chicken, it's already cooked. You just really need to heat it up. So I put it in a pan and cooked it with some of that taco seasoning. I also, when I was cooking it up, I don't like the huge chunks. I'm just not a fan of that. So I decided to break those up into smaller pieces. I thought it'd be better for the Meximelts. And also it would just make it stretch farther as well. So we were able to do 4 and still had some of this chicken left over. So you could easily do a couple more, probably up to 6 with this bag of chicken. Like I said, I'd already used some of the taco seasoning for a recipe in the past, and so for the chicken Meximelts, I just sprinkled a little bit of it that you saw, and then this is how much I had left over, and so I probably still had enough to make a whole nother batch of the chicken Meximelts. So for the assembly of putting the Meximelts together, I put them on a plate and did 2 at a time. Basically, I just sprinkled a little bit of the cheese on there, then poured some of the chicken on each one, some of the pico, and then I actually wrapped it up and then wrapped it in a damp paper towel and stuck it in the microwave for a good 30 seconds with 2 on a plate at a time, and it turned out absolutely perfect. I cannot rave about these enough. They were amazing, and this is definitely one of our new faves to make at home. So as you see on the screen, this is the total price that this whole meal cost to put together, and it was definitely not lacking in flavor in the least. All of us enjoyed it, even the kids loved it, so make sure to give this one a try. You won't regret it. And this is how much pico I had left over. I just thought I would show you guys this just to give you an idea of how much I used, so you can really stretch this meal to make it even cheaper. For this next meal, it may seem a little bit basic, but let me tell y'all, this slaw that we're gonna make is anything but basic. It is a family favorite passed down from my grandma. She taught me how to make it herself in her kitchen, and so I'm excited to finally share this one with you guys. But what we are making is some beans and cornbread with slaw on the side. Our family's favorite kinds of beans and cornbread is this Jiffy mix with the Lux pinto beans. And when we normally have this meal, we only have the beans with cornbread. It's just super simple to put together. I know some people like to make their own beans and stretch it farther, but for our family of 4 with 2 toddlers, 1 can of these Lux pinto beans does it for us. So you just do whichever works best for your family, the cheapest way that you know how. And with our family of 4, when we have this meal, just the beans and cornbread, it ends up being just like $1 something. So it's super cheap. But when I was growing up at my grandma's house, we would always have slaw on the side. She would have slaw made up just about any time you're at her house. So for the slaw dressing, it actually is a little bit more up front, but one of the jars of slaw dressing, once you make it up, will do at least 2 to 3 heads of cabbage. And then when I'm using my salad shooter to shred up the cabbage, it will do our family of 4 at least 3 to 4 meals with it on the side. And I usually use 1 head of cabbage when we have family get-togethers of like anywhere from 16 to 20 people, and it does our whole family very nicely for 1 head of cabbage. So you could definitely stretch this slaw dressing very, very far. For the slaw dressing ingredients, I'm using some JFG mayo just because that's what my grandma always used, and it's also just as cheap as the Great Value brand. 1 head of cabbage, 1 cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese, a little bit of sugar. Then I'm using some apple cider vinegar, a little bit of mustard, and then some salt and pepper, and then also a little bit of some grated onion as well. I'll get into all the ingredients separately when we get to cooking it up, or to mixing it up rather. To make the slaw dressing, I just mix all the ingredients together, starting with the mayo. I dump the entire jar of mayo into a medium-sized bowl. Then I add in the 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. Then I add in 1 tablespoon of mustard and 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar is kind of like a trial and error thing. If you like more apple cider vinegary taste, then add a little bit more, but if you don't, then don't add as much. We actually like it though, so sometimes I end up going back and adding just a little bit more at the end if I feel like it needs it. Then the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of salt, but that is a little much for me. Even like a tablespoon and a half was kind of much, so that's kind of like a trial and error thing as well. But like a tablespoon and like a quarter is probably perfect. And then also it calls for 1 tablespoon of pepper, but I usually do just a little bit less of that as well. I also put in like a teaspoon and just a little bit more for extra measure of the sugar. I think it adds a good little sweet flavor that you can barely tell that it's there. And then for the onions, you just do a little bit of a grated onion, just enough for like a handful of it basically to add to it. Then you just want to stir all of those ingredients until they are very well combined, and then put it back right into that mayo jar. That's what my grandma did, so that's what I do. I do use a Sharpie and write on it with big letters slaw dressing so that I don't go mistaking it as mayo anytime. The first thing I'm going to do is take the cabbage and actually wash it, of course, and then peel off a few of the top layers just to get down to the lighter color cabbage. And then I'll use the salad shooter. My grandma actually gave me one that she got at a yard sale for $1, and then she always had one as well. I'm not sure where she actually got hers originally, but I was proud to get one for $1, and so that's what I use. The only thing I don't like about using a salad shooter is that it is very loud. I still remember being at her house many times, being in the living room holding my ears while she was in the kitchen using that salad shooter.
Once I shred up all the cabbage, I like to put it into individual size baggies. That way it doesn't take up much space in the refrigerator, and I'm also able to separate it into like bags for what I think our family will use for a meal for a side. And that way it also stays fresher, and you're able to just pull one out really quick and just mix it with that slaw dressing. When you mix it and save it for like right before a meal, the slaw dressing and the slaw comes out tasting fresher, in my opinion. You don't like it to sit for a long time together. I just feel like the taste just kind of throws it off a little bit. So it's definitely a way to keep it more fresh this way. Now on to the beans and cornbread. The Jiffy Cornbread mix is definitely so easy to cook up. You just need an egg, a third a cup of milk, and then the Jiffy Cornbread mix itself, and stick it in the oven for like 14-ish minutes, I think, and it's done. The beans also can't get any more simple than just dumping them in the pan. I do add a little bit of water to mine though, just to add some more of the soupiness to it, because that's what I like. But again, just use what your family likes and what you can find the cheapest for beans to feed your family. But this is just what we like. I don't know how y'all like to eat your beans, but I always crumble up some cornbread in the bottom of it, put the beans in, add some onions on top, and I usually would use some ketchup as well, but we are actually out. So I just dealt with it and didn't use any at all. I actually tried a little bit of salsa on it and it was not good at all. But I would love to know how you guys like your beans. Just curious. But this is definitely a classic meal that I remember having growing up a lot, and it's still one of my favorites right now. I actually don't even think I really liked it when I was little, but I absolutely love it now. The cabbage to slaw dressing ratio is totally your personal preference, but as you can see, I've poured in my little baggie of the cabbage, and I just use a couple like spoonfuls pretty much of the slaw dressing and mix that together. And less is more in the beginning, because you can always add more if you need to, but you can't take it out. If any of you try this recipe for the slaw dressing, I would love to hear about it. It is our family's favorite recipe. My husband Travis didn't even like slaw before trying my grandma's, and now he loves that kind and no other kind, and we're all kind of the same way. So it's definitely worth giving it a try. But I hope that this maybe gave you a new take on slaw and beans and cornbread, and just shows you how cheap of a meal that this can actually be. And again, the slaw dressing and slaw can go stretch farther and farther for many more meals. So for the final $5 meal, I'm doing some pork chops, and I was really surprised to find this deal. I found these at Aldi's and they were $5.74, and so I just needed 5 for my family, so I split that in half and put them into 2 freezer bags so that I could freeze the other 5 for another time. And I actually got these earlier on and freeze both of them for a little bit, but I'm just using 5 today for this challenge in particular. And to season those with, I'm going to use some garlic, butter, and salt and pepper, and then I'm also going to make some sweet potato fries and just use a can of green beans for the other side. The first thing I did for this meal was cut up and peel the sweet potato, because I figured it would take the longest out of all 3 of the things that I was making, even longer than the pork chops take. So I just peeled the sweet potato and then cut it up into fry size bites. Since this was just a side item, 1 sweet potato was plenty to feed our family of 4. And to season them, I just did some salt and pepper on them just to keep it simple. I usually will roll them in a little bit of olive oil too, and then like garlic powder or paprika seasoning is really good on them. You can pretty much do whatever kind of seasoning you have on hand and they're going to turn out good. I just use basic salt and pepper just to show you that you can use just simple ingredients that you most likely already have on hand anyway to make a meal. It doesn't have to be elaborate and fancy every single time. To cook them, I just stick them on a little baking sheet in the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes. I like them a little bit softer, but if you like them crispier, you can cook them longer. You just have to watch out for them getting like a little bit burnt on the edges. And I've also heard people say that they've cooked them in the air fryer. I personally don't have one yet. Still really want to get one, but if you have an air fryer, I'm sure they'd be great in there too. Now onto the pork chops. I'm sure there are plenty of ways that you can season these pork chops. I'm just using some salt and pepper and rubbing that into both sides of these. I also melted half a stick of butter and poured it into the baking dish that I was cooking these in. And then I also added 4 cloves of minced garlic and just kind of rubbed that on top of the pork chops as well. I also think that ranch seasoning packet, like they have the Walmart brand kind that you can get for 77 cents, and I think that would make these so good. So this is what I used because that's what I had on hand. This is how much of the garlic that I had left after using 4 cloves. I feel like garlic is one of those really good seasonings to have on hand because it can go a really long way. But here are the sweet potato fries and the pork chops straight out of the oven. I cooked the pork chops on 425 for about 10-ish minutes. You just need to cook it until the temperature is done. And then this is how it all looked for our family of 4 and how much we had on our plate. It was plenty for us, so we got full for sure. The garlic was a little much for my husband, so if you don't like as much garlic like he doesn't, then don't use as much, but me and my family actually love it, so the more the merrier for me. And this is the boys. They love pork chops, so this is one of their favorite meals.
So that was all 3 of the $5 meals that I had, but make sure again to go watch Kayla's video to see her 3 meals as well. I hope that it gave you guys some new ideas, or at least a new take on some recipes that you might already be kind of making for your family to maybe cut down on cost overall for the meal. I know that when me and Kayla came up with this video idea that we really thought it would be a little bit easier than it was. It was definitely a challenge to come up with 3 $5 meals that were truly $5. So I would encourage you guys to try it. It might be a little bit eye-opening for you guys as well. If you do try out the $5 meal challenge, then let me know over on Instagram. I would love to see what you guys come up with too. We can all stand to save a little bit, and I'd love new ideas as well. Or you can just let me know in the comments down here on this video. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.